Owning a cinema lens does not need to cost you one of your kidneys, they say. All this time I've been shooting my videos using a photography lens, and I only heard about this budget cinema lens from Sirui a few months ago. And at that point, I only realized that many cinema lenses have a high price tag on them. So this is the Sirui Nightwalker 24mm focal length. It is an APS-C or a Super 35 budget cinema lens. That means if you're using a full frame camera, you need to set the sensor mode in your camera to Super 35. I purchased this lens from Sirui, Australia with my own money. At the time of purchase, the lens cost me 599 Australian dollars. The Nightwalker also comes in 35mm and 50mm focal length. So I've been dabbling with this lens paired with my Canon EOS R5C in the past 3 months, and I have quite a mixed feeling about it. So this is a manual focus lens. There are no electronics that enable the lens to communicate with the camera, and because of that reason, there is no autofocus capability from this lens. The adjustment of the aperture and the focus pull is done manually from the lens. To get the subject in focus, you have to rely on your eye. With the Canon EOS R5C, you can set the focus peaking so you can see on the LCD whether the subject is on focus, but from my experience, sometimes it's not really accurate, depending on the amount of light that hits the subject. The focus throw of this lens is quite long at 270 degrees. Without a fuller focus, you might find this long throw as an inconvenience, but on the other hand, with focus throw this long, you can get a very precise focus. Besides the lack of autofocus, you will not see any information about the aperture displayed on the screen, unlike when you're using a Canon RF lenses. So in my case, sometimes I have to peek over to the side of the lens to know the exact aperture that I need to set, and I found this to be an inconvenience. I wish the aperture marking is visible from the top when I'm holding the camera, rather than placed on the side of the lens. The minimum focus distance of this lens is at 30cm, which is not too bad as you can get quite close to the object or subject and still get it in focus. I personally think that the build quality of this lens is great. The housing is all metal. I got myself the metal gray housing, and Sirui also released this lens in black housing options. But I personally think the metal gray housing looks really cool and it looks like a badass, if you ask me. Even though the housing is all metal, the weight of this lens is only at 509 grams, which is not as heavy as some RF lenses. There is no weather sealing around the lens barrel if that matters to you. Now let's talk about the image quality that comes out of this lens. The image quality, I would say, can be quite subjective. From my personal experience, sometimes it's a hit and miss. Sometimes I like the image quality coming out of this lens, but in some cases, I don't really like it. If you like a soft-looking, dreamy, misty kind of footage, you will like this lens. So I record mostly using the Canon C-Log 3 color profile on the EOS R5C. When I compare to the footage coming out of the Canon RF lenses, I think the color coming out of the Sirui Nightwalker is lacking contrast and less sharp. But if you use a log color profile and if you apply LUT or do some color grading, you can get a cinematic-like footage. Another thing that I would like to share with you is lens flares. When you point this lens directly to the sun, you can see some flares on the footage. Sometimes you might see this as a flaw, but some of you might see this as a feature of the lens that adds character to your footage. As the name suggests, this lens was marketed to perform in low light scenarios or at nighttime because it has a maximum aperture of t1.2. When I'm taking footage at nighttime, I set the base ISO on the Canon EOS R5C to 3200. In real life scenario, I only open up the aperture to its maximum or t1.2 when there is a close subject in the frame and when I want to blur out the background. But when I want to take a footage of a cityscape without any subject in the frame, I would only open up the aperture to 4.0 or at max 5.6. And as you can see on the screen right now, the bokeh ball coming out of this lens is so. I have quite a mixed feeling about it. I like how well rounded it is, but you will also notice some chromatic aberration around the bokeh ball. In low light or at nighttime scenarios, I wish the color produced by this lens has a bit more contrast and makes the color of the lights more popped out, if you know what I mean. But again, this is my subjective opinion. I myself would not use this lens for food or product videography, as for those kinds of use cases, I'm looking for a lens that can produce a sharp and high contrast footage. For food or product videography, I think I will still use Canon RF lenses. I also do not like the nighttime footage coming out of this lens. I think this is a good lens for passion project or short documentary film. And again, this is my personal subjective opinion. This lens will give you a character to your footage, but only you know whether that is the character that you need for your project. As for me, I will not buy the remaining 2 lenses to complete the set, but instead, I will look out for other budget cine lenses that are already available in the market to see if there are better options. I might make a comparison with the Sirui Nightwalker once I've got the lens. If you have any suggestions on what other budget cine lenses I should look out for in the market, please leave a comment down below. So that is all from me, everyone. I hope you found this video informational. I hope it helps you to decide whether you should buy this lens or not. If you have any questions about this lens, please drop it in the comment section down below. I will see you in the next video, folks. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye bye.